He said that.
I got that. Thanks.
I won't be fighting for him. I'm fighting for my people.
You young pup.
Do you believe in Paul?
There are signs.
The prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it. Because all my visions lead to horror.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it. Johnny, do you believe in me?
Paul Atreides is still alive.
Aloha. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island of Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best movie reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And, well, opening weekend. Actually, it's a little late. This is now Tuesday, March 5th, of the opening weekend of Dune Part 2. Essentially the completion of Part 1, you know, whereas back in the 80s it was a full movie, one movie off of one book, Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune. But Warner Brothers decided to split this up into two movies, Dune Part 1 and Part 2. As you might have remembered from my earlier review, I really had no love for the very first Dune. You know, Dune Part 1 by Denis Villeneuve. I'm really not taking on him as a director. They say he's pretty much copying Christopher Nolan's style in his movies. And it's like, well, maybe, but you know, he's not hidden the feels for me. And you know, I was not a fan of his movie The Arrival, and I'm not a fan of the very first Dune. I will say that, however, for Dune Part 2, well, let's get to it. Remember our rating scale, Shaka thumbs up, it's good to see, I recommend it. Shaka thumbs down, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for Dune Part 1, remember, that came out during the pandemic and was at the theater and then also streamed day and day release by Warner Brothers on HBO Max at the time, now Max. It was a Shaka thumbs down for that. For Dune Part 2, here only at the movie theaters for now, to go to streaming later, it is overall a Shaka thumbs up. Basically, this rectifies the problems of Part 1. This feels like a complete movie. There is an ending to this movie, whereas the first part of Dune Part 1 just abruptly seemed to end with very little action in the movie. Here you have a lot more significant action. There are some ship battles and troop battles, more so than the first movie, definitely. You know, and again, if you've seen the 80s one, you know the fantastic fight at the end, knife fight between Paul Mabdi Atreides and Fade Harkonnen, at the time played by Sting, now played by Austin Butler, against Timothée Chalamet. And I will say that this fight scene, this knife scene, is very, very well done. And it's the highlight of the movie, and it was wise to end the movie there, very much like the first one did, with the success of the Fremen warriors against House Harkonnen and pretty much putting the Emperor on his knees. If you're familiar with the book and familiar with that, like I said, the first 80s movie, it essentially does that. What this movie does in addition to that is sets up Part 3, whereas the 80s movie didn't make any mention of it. But book, you know, sets up movie 3, Dune Part 3, to come out probably in 2026 or so. But actually, it is Dune Part 2, Dune Messiah, whereas Paul Atreides, Mahdi, takes the Fremen warriors across the galaxy to defeat the other houses. What the first movie did not show, and what only the book kind of hints at, as it kind of wraps up everything fairly well and nicely, leaving it a complete book at the time, without the need to go into 3, was that pretty much peace had been established onto Arrakis, and Paul pretty much controls the spice, and the universe bows to him, just as the Emperor does. Here, the Emperor does bow to him. The Harkonnens are pretty much destroyed. House Atreides, Paul Mabdid, is back, but the other houses will not fall in line. So he takes to the skies, to space, to carry on the war there, which, should be very interesting. I'm kind of on the fence. It's like, this movie was I give it a shock of thumbs up, only because it is a complete movie, unlike the first movie. It ends in a respectable feeling place, and then on top of it, you did have a lot of action that helped explain everything that was just left undone in the first movie, and I felt that was very poor workings for the director of Delanu, of such acclaim, not in my book, but of such acclaim, that he should have definitely done better for it. But this one makes up for that, so I give it a shock of thumbs up. But I am much more interested in seeing part 3. I've never read Dune Messiah, book 2, which movie 3 will be based on. So that's going to be new ground for me. So maybe I won't be so biased against Delanu's work if he returns for part 3. But other than that, there's not much I can say. And the idea of some space battles sounds very intriguing, as some other reviewers I've seen online, kind of comparing this to a new take of Star Wars, even though Dune, the books, had come out well before Star Wars, the movies. But I'm always a fan of space battles, and so that should be much more interesting, definitely, than the Dune 1 movie that we got. So I look forward to that, and rating that a little bit more unbiased, having seen the 80s movie, which was basically Dune, the book, which this movie splits up into 2 books, or 2 movies off of the 1 book. So hopefully they don't split Dune Messiah into 2 movies. Hopefully it's just 1 movie and they keep it straight and simple and concise, and leave it at that, which I feel would be a stronger movie. But again, for Dune Part 2, definitely a shock of thumbs up. Do I recommend seeing this in theaters? Only if you're a big Dune fan. To me, you might as well wait. If they're not putting it out day and day release, but it should hit streaming soon enough, within the next month, 2 months. You should see it on there somewhere, and so you'll be able to check it out, and thus you'll have the enjoyment of watching 1 and 2 as complete movies. It'll be long movies, almost 6 hours, but it'll be much more enjoyable than watching part 1 alone and part 2 cold, if you haven't rewatched part 1. Just to get you caught back up to speed on where you were and what happened. Because it is kind of a rushed impact if you're not familiar with the story of Dune. It has been a couple of years, and you're going to miss a couple of beats there. It's like, what's going on again? It's like, oh yeah, okay. But yeah, so I don't recommend it at theaters unless you really love Dune, love the first movie, and really want to see it. If not, then you can just wait. But it is a far superior movie to part 1. All right, that's all I got to say about Dune Part 2. Shock a thumbs up. Do that. See it however you want, however you may wish to. It's worth watching, and unfortunately it's the only new movie out this weekend and this week until unfortunately again slim pickings for middle of March, with only Kung Fu Panda Part 4 coming out next weekend. All right, mahalo and aloha.